The experience that we have as franchisees has been overwhelmingly positive. We have 3 young kids at this point, so the time freedom, the flexibility that allows for us not having any sort of a W-2 job or an employer has been amazing.
You need that why to remind you why the heck you got into this to begin with. It's not all sunshines and rainbows. It's definitely worth it, and what it can create for your life and for your family. The perfect time and the time to do it is now if you want to take control, because this is not an overnight thing.
Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast, where you can escape the corporate trap through franchise ownership. Here's your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, the Franchise Guide.
Okay, we have a very exciting episode for you today. I'm Giuseppe Grammatico of the Franchise Freedom Podcast, and
I'm Wes Barefoot with the Franchise Unfiltered Podcast.
We are doing a dual podcast today. We've done this before, and I wanted to bring my good friend and colleague, Wes, to discuss 2 franchise consultants and coaches, what we're seeing in the franchise industry we've been having with individuals looking to make that leap into business ownership. That would be great, instead of always hearing it from me, hearing it from Wes and vice versa, and getting a different perspective. Thanks for joining us today. I wanted to kick things off. Maybe just, Wes, since you know how we're going to be publishing the show, if you can give the audience a little bit of background of who Wes is and just a little bit of background how you got into franchising.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been looking forward to doing this. I think this will be fun and hopefully folks will get some good value from it. But Giuseppe said, we're both colleagues. We're both franchise consultants with the Franchoice Network. I've known Giuseppe for at least 5 years. I'm 5.5 years or so into my consulting business with Franchoice. Been in franchising for the better part of 12 years at this point. Worked for a number of different franchisors earlier on in my career, wore different hats, but did a lot of franchise development, franchise recruiting for those brands that I worked for. And then that led to my wife and I buying our first franchise business 7.5 years ago now. We still actually own that franchise business. We've owned another franchise as well that we sold a couple of years ago. The experience that we have as franchisees has been overwhelmingly positive. We have 3 young kids at this point, so the time freedom, the flexibility that kind of allows for us not having any sort of a W-2 job or an employer has been amazing. That's probably what I enjoy most about the consulting work, is just getting to help other people explore franchising, take a more methodical approach to really understanding it, seeing the full landscape of all the different types of franchises that are out there. It's overwhelming for most people. I don't even know where to start. And I think we'll touch on that a little bit more as we go today. But yeah, that's my story. Host a podcast called the Franchise Unfiltered Podcast. If you haven't come across it yet, hopefully you'll go check it out.
Great episode. I personally checked it out. Lots of great guests, and I definitely encourage you. We're going to put all that in the show notes when we publish the shows. And depending how we publish this, I'm Giuseppe Grammatico. Franchise Freedom is the name of my show. I got into franchising back in 2007. What is that, 18 years ago? And with the Franchise Network, it's going to be 7 years this year. I didn't realize I started before you. For some reason.
Yeah, I was thinking it was right around the same time. I guess It wasn't that far apart. I resigned from my last W-2 job in February of 2020 and was planning to go to Minneapolis for training in March, and we ended up doing it virtually because COVID was really just emerging on the scene across the U.S. at that point in time. So fun times.
I don't know who had the better timing, because I started at the end of 2018, and then I started ramping things up, and I launched the show in January of 2020, wrote the book in February of 2020, and then March of 2020 was the shutdown. And I'm just like, wait, which actually was a blessing in disguise, because I said, well, you can't catch COVID doing a podcast interview. So we kind of were able to continue networking and talking with people.
True enough.
Yeah. Background in franchising as well. I've owned master franchises. I've owned a restaurant, was downsized by corporate America, and made a lot of mistakes, had a lot of great wins. And kind of what Wes was saying, our role is really to empower and help individuals make that leap. Not a blind leap, right? We want to educate and help where we can. We all bring different backgrounds and experiences, which I think is awesome. I think there's a huge benefit there. These aren't things we have learned from books, and really just, help explain to someone, not what it will take, but hey, I started a business. It was February of 2007. It was my first franchise, not my first business. what does it take? 3 months of no salary or income, you can expect that. But how easy was that? And for me, I'm a numbers guy and I was well prepared. That hurt those 90 days. I was
Sure.
corporate exec prior to that and was getting my salary, my bonuses, my commissions and all that. And what does it take? And all the planning and everything involved. So yeah, we bring a lot from an experience standpoint. I'll kick it off with the question, if you're cool with it, because this is something, and we were talking about this prior. So we talk about the possibility of franchise ownership, owning a business, right? So whether you're a corporate exec looking to leave that job, downsize, maybe you're coming out of the military and you're looking for what's next. So we talk about, and we typically dive in, and I can't say I've listened to every episode, but we dive into the options and what to consider. But one thing that really hit me hard, and I didn't realize this stat, is that the president of the IFA was on a podcast beginning of the year. And he said that of the people they interviewed, 75% of those individuals said that they had thought about owning a business. So I kind of knew that. I thought maybe the number would be higher, but 75%. But what really hit me was that 75% of that group of people, 3/4 of that group, did not move forward with a business because they didn't know where to start. How do you even start, or what are things to even consider? So I have some thoughts, but I want to cue that to you and just get your kind of perspective. And where do you start? How do you make time for the research? What are the things you should have in place before starting an investigation or working with a coach?
Yeah, that's a pretty powerful stat, but I'm not shocked to hear it. And I think when you think about where to start, most people in this day and age, their first inclination is going to be go online. Now we have Chat GPT and Grok and all those types of tools. And so I think probably the hardest part of starting is, just sifting through all the noise that's out there, right? It's really not that hard to go start Googling best franchise opportunities or best way to get out of my 9 to 5. But it's what do you do at that point? Because now you're flooded with information, and it's so difficult to make heads of tails of any of it. What's legit? What's a scam? What's iffy? There's so much noise out there. I think it's one of the hardest things in this day and age that any of us deal with is how to stay focused on things that are going to move the needle towards the goals that we're working to accomplish. It's just so easy to get distracted, and it's just getting harder by the day to know what's true and what's not, especially with stuff that you see online. I think the first place that someone should start before you start looking at specific businesses or any of that is just really sit down and take good old-fashioned pen to paper and write your goals out. Get really clear on it, because you and I talk with a lot of people, Giuseppe, and most of the people we talk to probably are going to tell us that they've thought about owning their own business at some point in time. But then we start asking some questions and going through our normal coaching process. And I assume this is the case for you. A lot of the people I'm talking to, it's once you ask one or two kind of clarifying questions, you can tell they haven't put a ton of time or thought into it. And I think part of where we can really help people is, like I said earlier, taking a more methodical approach to this whole process. When it comes to what franchises should I be looking at, don't choose a franchise based on the product or the service. Choose a business based on the type of model that it has, the type of lifestyle that it can allow, and does that align with your goals that you're working. And the goals are financial, yes, but not entirely financial. So I think that's the starting point, is get crystal clear on what you want. Because once you have that, then it's a lot easier to go out and find something that's going to actually be the right type of vehicle to help you go get there. We've seen a lot of people get into businesses that are probably fine businesses, but they're not the right business for them based on what it is they're trying to accomplish.
That's a good point. Just because it worked for your friend or neighbor doesn't mean it's a good fit for you. So that you nailed it. One thing I'd add is make sure you get buy-in. Family has to know why you're doing this. You're married, you have kids. We didn't have kids. We were looking to start a family, but if you have kids or, anyone in the house, letting them know this is going to be a busy time, right? There's going to be investment. Especially if you're keeping a job and running the business or leaving the job or whatever the case may be, things are going to be busy, but this is kind of why I'm doing it. Going back to what you said about the why, letting everyone know, getting your finances in order. I can't tell you how many conversations I had where, what are we talking investment wise? And they're throwing numbers and it's like, well, what are you basing it on? And not knowing liquidity and net worth. And I'm a finance guy, so I do a monthly review and update on my end, quarterly meeting with the financial advisor, always trying to keep up to date just in case any mistakes, opportunity issues, whatever the case may be. But getting situated, are you in a position to leave the job to start the business? We talk about having the financial to get up and running. These are things to really prepare for. But the why is the why important, if that makes sense? It's number one, it's what's driving you to own this. To your point, it's not the widget or the service, it's the vehicle that'll get you there. Yeah. But I'm self-employed, full-time 25 years if you factor in my side hustles and things like that. And business ownership is a roller coaster ride. It's cyclical. And you need that constant reminder. So when you're having a rough, and I've had some rough years or rough days, and 2008 was not an easy year, although it wasn't a surprise. Yeah. You need that why to remind you why the heck you got into this to begin with. So it's not all sunshines and rainbows. It's definitely worth it and what it can, create for your life and for your family. But it's cyclical. There's ups and downs. Hopefully it's more ups and downs.
Yeah. It's just like life. There's seasons, there's definitely ups and downs. And at the end of the day, you're never going to have complete control over what happens and how things go. But I think for anyone out there that is curious or intrigued by the idea of business ownership, and you hear us have this conversation like, oh, it's a roller coaster, it's ups and downs. It's yeah, but so is life. I was working for the same corporation for 30 years. When you own a business, though, even though you'll never be able to control everything, I think you maintain a lot more control over your livelihood, over your time than you do if you're essentially trading yourself, your time, your work, your effort for a salary of some sort. So I think sometimes a little bit of a reframe can be necessary, especially as you get closer and closer to making a big decision like starting a business, buying a franchise. You need to come back to that why, and you also need to reframe because everyone immediately jumps to it's so risky to start a business.
Right.
Yeah, sure. There's some risk. It's risky to get in the car and drive to the grocery store, but we do it. It's risky to sign a job contract for a set amount of money every year because that company is not obligated to keep you on.
That's a good point.
Right. And look, if you work for a big publicly traded company, and even most private companies, they have fiscal responsibilities to shareholders, to investors. So if it comes down to you or the bottom line, company chooses the bottom line every time. And it's usually not personal. It's usually business. Right. But I think a lot of people lose sight of how risky that actually is to say, yes, I'm going to trust that you're going to pay me what you're going to pay me for an indefinite amount of time. That's what's going to keep a roof over my family's head and keep food on the table for my family.
Yeah, it's a risk. It's one income stream that can come to an end at any point. Maybe there's some severance or something offered as well, but happened to a family member not too long ago. We were discussing that, and I said, "Well, what was the plan B? How did you prepare?" And they said, "Didn't expect this to happen."
Franchise are you getting them into?
What's that? What's franchise? We did talk about that, and with this family member, I said definitely need to get family buy-in before we start talking brands because obviously everyone's got to be on the same page. So it was a recent conversation, and that's to be continued. That'll be a future episode. Yeah, but that's the big part of it. It's being prepared. What I talk about is franchising as a safety net, not knowing if this job loss will happen, massive layoffs. So why not have something as a backup? Maybe something where you keep the job and you run it part-time. Now, I will say it won't work with every brand. That's not something you could just pick and choose, and that's part of the value we bring to the table. But the idea of a safety net in the event you're collecting. So the way I look at it is you're collecting income, you're building this entity so that number one, if you do get laid off or when you get laid off, I should almost rephrase that, you'll have something to go to. But also you are now, as you mentioned, in control so that, you know what? I'm sick of commuting. I don't need maybe this W-2 income. The business is maybe got me to cover my bills, my expenses. I'm now ready to dive in full time. So I guess what's your thoughts on a safety net? Because to me, it sounds like a no-brainer when having conversations. There's still risk, there's still an investment, and
Yeah.
you're going to be putting in a lot of time after work. What are your thoughts on a safety net, or another way to looking at franchising is to really safeguard your job?
Yeah, there's two ways people typically get into franchising. It's either more of what you just described, which I think for the right person, and to your point, it has to be the right type of franchise. No one's going to sit here and argue with you that investing in real estate is a dumb idea, right? No one's going to be like, oh, no, that's stupid. Who invests in real estate? It's understanding, yeah, if you can invest in real estate, go invest in real estate. It's a smart thing to do. There's so many similarities to investing in the right type of franchise as safety net, the way that you describe it. If done, it's going to be a cash flowing asset. Checks the same box as real estate, although chances are it's going to cash flow a lot more in over a year-long period than a piece of real estate is. It's going to be an appreciating asset as long as you're continuing to grow and build a profitable business. People buy and sell franchises all the time, just like people buy and sell real estate. I think there's a lot more head trash involved in a lot of cases for people when it comes to, I'm going to buy this real estate and all I've got to do is rent it out and make sure the HVAC gets fixed if it breaks. Whereas I think where people get tripped up in something, the franchise is, there's a lot bigger risk of failure in their eyes. I'm not even saying there's actually all that more risk. You have to show up and execute. Think about it. We all know people that have spent $1 million plus on their primary residence, which is not a cash flowing asset.
Correct.
Hopefully it's an appreciating asset that'll go up in value over time, but there's no guarantee on that. But it's taking money out of your pocket every month. You buy $1 million home and you go look at it maybe once, twice with a real estate agent. You have someone else go do and you're just, okay, sign off. Most people are not having an attorney review the mortgage documents from the bank, which when you read those, it's pretty freaking one-sided. With a franchise, there's a lot of franchises out there, great franchises that are going to require far less than $1 million to get up and running. People put themselves through hell. Been something I scratched my head about. And it does boil down to is you buy a primary residence, all you got to do is move in and live there. When you buy a business, you have to show up and you have to execute, and we're all afraid of failing. So I think that's where some of it is. But anyways, to get back to your original point, the right type of franchise as a safety net, as a way to diversify, as a way to lay the groundwork for yourself to exit corporate, hopefully more on your terms than on theirs. A lot of sense. It can make a lot of sense too for someone that's been laid off or just totally burned out on working for someone else to just make that complete pivot. That's the other way that people get into franchising. And my wife had been laid off. We bought our first franchise not too long after she had been laid off. And we'd also had our first kid. She was actually, this is funny now, she was on maternity leave when her position was eliminated.
While she was on maternity leave?
While she was on maternity leave.
Not funny then.
Wasn't funny then. Now,
Wow.
I mean, it's a good reminder for us that things tend to happen for a reason, even if you can't necessarily see it in the moment. Because she was having, some guilt about once maternity leave was over, going back to work full time. Our daughter would have been in daycare full time. It absolutely worked out for the best. And we used that opportunity. We'd already been talking about ways we could start our own business and she could work and produce, but do it in a more flexible manner. And that's how we got into franchise. It was a complete pivot for her out of a corporate job for the right person with the right type of franchise. Now, the way you describe it as a safety net, I would encourage people zoom out a little bit and about a franchise in the same context you would think about investing in real estate or other smart, savvy investments that most people would tell you, yeah, that's probably something worth educating yourself and learning more about.
I that approach, and it seems to eliminate some of the fears because you still got the income coming in and the writing's on the wall. If you're going to be losing your job, you have some sense as to what's going on. Sometimes we're completely surprised, but I've gone through that and it's not fun. I don't wish that on anyone.
Yeah.
We're in the same boat, right? We're working with individuals daily. Everyone's situations are different. What are you hearing? What are you saying to individuals? Are there consistent themes? Maybe some advice that you share with the audience?
Yeah. So in terms of consistent themes that I'm hearing regularly, I think it's finally set in with a lot of people that this whole AI thing we've been hearing so much about over the last couple of years is real, and it's here, and it's moving faster than I think many of us realized, and it will have an impact. And it's not entirely clear yet what exactly that impact is going to be on every single industry out there or the extent of that impact. But I think it's got some people concerned, and probably rightfully so. I think there are more people out there starting to think about, hey, what's my plan B, or how can I hedge my bets or give myself a safety net of some sorts? Getting a lot of people asking about, it was first recession proof years ago, then it was pandemic proof after COVID. So now I'm hearing a lot of people ask about AI proof businesses. And the good news is they're out there. I don't know that everything will be AI proof forever, but there's a lot of franchises out there that you and I work with that are not in a position right now where AI is going to be able to come in and massively disrupt their industry. In fact, a lot of these franchises can really use AI in smart ways to enhance their business and make it a better experience for the customers, make things like marketing and advertising easier, streamline day-to-day operations for their franchisees. Even though we're talking about jobs being eliminated here, AI can result in you as the franchise owner needing fewer employees, which is probably going to help your bottom line.
Right.
I would say that's a very positive aspect of AI and we are constantly getting updates from brands that we work with about smart, clever ways they're implementing AI into the business. And it's not, a lot of times it's from companies you wouldn't really think of as being tech forward, right? Mm-hmm. Window coverings companies, flooring companies, painting companies. Like we work with a window washing concept that's using drone with AI software to clean windows on high rises. You don't have to have employees on ladders or scaffolding. Like it's pretty cool. So anyways, the common theme that I've been hearing a lot of is people, I think recognizing that, okay, this AI thing is real. It's not going anywhere. And if I were to go the route of owning my own business, what are some of the best options to look at that are going to be at least somewhat insulated from AI?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, certain businesses like home services, it's going to be hard for AI. They're implementing it. And I think we're at the point at this stage, and yes, it's kind of really grown. I never thought it would be growing this rapidly or we'd be talking about it so much. But to your point, talking and interviewing founders and different brands and different franchise companies, you're hearing things. Yeah, we're embracing it. We're actually going to use the transcript from this podcast, and we're going to put that into our platform because the AI learns, the AI speaks in your voice. The AI, there's a painting concept that we work with, and the AI, they created their own chat GPT version. And the AI, you ask it questions and it's specific for that brand, will respond, will send videos. And if they can't find the solution, it actually goes to a group of franchisees that the technicians are all kind of interacting with one another. The brands are investing, they're owning the platforms. They're not using the free stuff. They're actually investing in their own AI to really take advantage of the technology to make, as you mentioned, the franchisees much more efficient. So it's definitely a buzzword. We've been talking about it quite a bit, but you've seen huge changes to your point, being able to cut back on headcount and helping the franchisee be a little bit more competitive or a lot more competitive and profitable with staff. Owning that business, you get to tap into these huge investments that the franchisors are making because that's being equally distributed. All the franchisees obviously have access to this technology, and you have that buying power that it would be really difficult to do on your own. I implement AI, and there's only so much I can do, but you hear these national brands spending the money so that everyone can really take advantage and be as efficient as possible.
These learning models work is the more information you feed it, the faster it learns. So if you've got one small local business teaching its AI, that's going to learn and grow. But if you've got a franchise organization with 100 plus franchisees across the country, all feeding it information, it's going to learn much faster and become a much more efficient tool much quicker. And then there's the buying power and all of that. I feel for local mom and pop companies out there don't even see it coming fully yet. Everything that's happening with AI, they're aware of it and they don't know where to even start. It's so hard to get educated on everything that's out there from an AI standpoint and different ways you can implement some of these tools. And it's changing literally by the day. Being a part of an organization where they probably have people on their team who it's their sole focus or a primary responsibility of theirs to be learning AI, helping to implement it. It's going to give people a huge leg up going forward.
What other kind of piece of advice, things you're hearing for someone that is, exploring the idea of owning a business? What other advice would you give to someone that, or topics or anything relevant?
Yeah, I think just look, educate yourself, right? The way I coach anyone that I start working with, sure, it's very similar to how you do it, Giuseppe, is this is a learning process. It's an educational process. Obviously, there's other ways to get into business for yourself other than franchising, right? You and I could sit here for the next 3+ hours and talk about some of the many advantages of going the franchise route. But the fact of the matter is there's pros and cons to any pathway that you may take to getting into business for yourself. If it's something you're thinking about, if it's something you're curious about, you owe it to yourself to take the time to do some real research and to really educate yourself on franchising. You could probably pull up the exact number or get pretty close to it, but there are thousands upon thousands of franchise owners throughout the US. That's not an accident, right? The overall model of franchising works when it's done well. Not all franchises are created equally. So that's a big part of where Giuseppe and I can add value to the people that we work with. We spend huge amounts of our time. We have other people around us that spend huge amounts of their time researching, vetting different franchise brands. But it's a great way to do it. And there's going to be risk at the end of the day if you go into business for yourself. Like we talked about earlier, there's risk working for someone else, even though people don't tend to look at it that way. As there is. If done right, getting into a good franchise that's a good fit for you based on your experience and your skills is a way that you can pretty dramatically de-risk that step of going into business for yourself. There's ways you can do it as more of a safety net where you can do it alongside of your corporate job. The point is just educate yourself. And that goes so far beyond just listening to some podcasts or doing some research online. Plug in with someone like Giuseppe, someone like myself. There's other great coaches and consultants out there that have real world experience, right? Have done this, have made mistakes, have learned from those mistakes, have helped other people make the same transition in their life. Look at it as just another way that you can educate yourself, invest in yourself, and you may be surprised that there are some amazing opportunities out there that are not even on your radar today.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of the book, Who Not How, finding the professional, finding someone that is the insider, but not just as an insider with information, but has owned franchise, has owned other businesses, that has experienced. Franchise coach that I work with changed my life, really opened me up to the world of franchising. Fast food, I thought you had to be rich. I thought you had to have experience. That wasn't the case. It's really setting, okay, these are some opinions I have, preconceived notions, whatever you want to call it, but really saying, okay, this is where I'm at. Let me do a self-assessment. What's working? What's not working? Do I want to own a business? What am I trying to accomplish here? Where am I in life? For me, I was starting a family. Kids won't remember that first year, that first 2 years. The timing is when they say, when's the right timing? It's never a perfect time. The perfect time is, and the time to do it is now if you want to take control, because this is not an overnight thing. What I will say to add on is it was time freedom. That was the biggest thing. I wanted to make money. Growing up in a restaurant, a lot of hours, weekends, holidays. So it was time freedom. I became a soccer coach when my son turned 4. He's now going to be 18 in November, which is crazy. We're looking at colleges. So I've never missed a game. So that's what my vehicle, that's what my business has created for me. But what I will say, and this is where I think is missed, this is not created overnight. There was no time freedom my first year. Yes, I controlled my calendar, but it's a lot of work. But look at what that investment now, as I mentioned, I never missed my daughter's events. I've never missed a birthday party. I'm always around. I get to work from home, but there was a building up, financial freedom. That's also great. Is that created the first year? Maybe not exactly where you want to be, but it's this building phase. I look at it The way I viewed it was the first year was the building year. I'm going to reinvest the profits. I'm going to find my team. I'm going to get educated. I had to replace someone that first year, but I got trained in a new business. Use that as a building year. So when you change the perspective a little to set the expectation and say, okay, this is going to be my builder year, and then I will grow exponentially from there. That's what truly helped me. It wasn't a smooth ride. It took some reminders and things. Looking back, when I launched my other businesses, it was the exact same thing. It's you build it up, and then you find that team, you find the staff, you round up the staff, your employees, the lifeblood of that business that are more talented than you. You're not supposed to be the best at marketing and the best at sales. You're going to hire this team to really help you run that business, following the systems of the franchise. That's the stuff where when I finally grasped it, found those right people, business just exploded from there. It just took me a little while to really understand it. And I admit that. I was young, 25, 26 years old, and it took me a little while to get it. But once it started clicking, it was a complete game changer.
Yeah, I think, don't overthink it. It's not a big decision, but we make arguably bigger, they're going to have bigger financial impact on you. We make those decisions without putting nearly as much thought or overthinking as with something like investing in a franchise or investing in real estate. We'll take a corporate job and just immediately put 10% into the 401k,
right,
and we don't know who the hell's directing where that money's going or what's. You have zero control over it. We don't think twice about it.
No
Whether
control
it's a franchise
or
something else, it's investing in yourself. And I'm not saying you should not put thought and do your due diligence, but don't overthink it at the same time. That's where you and I both see a lot of people get stuck, is they just overthink and they overthink. And,
get unstuck.
And like you talk about financial freedom. It's a good point with the time freedom. It's not going to happen overnight. You're going to have to go through a building season to get there. With financial freedom, look at the wealthiest people in the world, people that have real financial freedom. In most cases, it doesn't come from one place, right? It comes through multiple income streams. That's another thing I see people get stuck on, is they feel like they've got to hit a grand slam with their first franchise. There's nothing wrong with your first franchise getting to a point where you make $200,000 a year from it, but you have more time freedom. You've learned some stuff, and you can take that and go apply it to business number 2, or use that as a stepping stone to the next level. Like, it doesn't have to be this type of thing where you can see that, hey, this is going to help me accomplish every single one of my goals by itself. It's a piece of the puzzle in most cases.
I love that. That makes complete sense. This was fun. I'm sure we could be talking for hours on this, but I appreciate this whole group format. Yeah. It's not just me. And I'm like, you know what? It's good to get different perspectives, even just how it's kind of approached. So I appreciate this dual show. Maybe we'll do this again really soon. And looking forward to it. And we'll touch base. So if anyone has any questions, put them in the comments, send us a message, reach out to any one of us. I'll put all our contact information in there. But if there was something that we didn't discuss or you want to cover on a future episode for the both of us, we're always looking for topics to discuss or guests. Send it our way. I'll share with Wes and vice versa, and looking forward to it. And until we speak again, thanks again, Wes. It was fun, and we'll talk soon.
I enjoyed it. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks again, everyone. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to learn how to make the transition from corporate to owning your franchise, join Giuseppe on the next episode. You can also follow on all social media platforms and achieve financial and time freedom today.